Johan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Gonna roll the logo and we'll make it official.
All right.
All right, so we're here today to talk about your incredibly ambitious short film, Shift, which is on Reveel'd.net, revealmovies.com right now. I mean, right from the screen grab, the promo of this very, very mean looking Android robot type thing, I was drawn in. Huge fan of sci-fi. And when I started watching it, I thought the first thing I thought was, I mean, I'll have you explain what the movie is about, but then I want to know, where do you start on something so ambitious?
Well, it never started as such an ambitious project. We're actually going to make just a short film, part of a competition. It was only meant to be 3 minutes long, and it was supposed to be done over a weekend or so, and that was it. It wasn't meant to be as big as it ended up. And I bashed out a script. The script ended up being maybe 5-6 pages, but we kind of realized that there was something in this that was maybe bigger than just a little short festival thing. So we thought, let's keep it. Let's embellish it. And I think part of the conditions of that festival the competition that we were going to enter was that they then own the rights to the work, which was a big sort of red flag for us. So basically, we pulled out of that, and we just went and shot it the way I think it should be. So yeah, it just ended up being this big sort of thing, which it usually ends up being with me. My first feature was I think called Forbidden Ground, which in the States it's called Battleground.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just supposed to be a small film, a couple of soldiers in World War One stuck in a ditch. And before we started shooting, we built an entire battlefield. We used explosives to blow the field up, 300 kilos of it. We had charges down the, it just ended up being this mammoth job.
So no shortage of ambition. I guess then that
it's the way I roll.
Where do you listen? You're talking to a guy who likes to shoot single take feature films, and you're in the ambition club here. I think where do you start? Something with so many special effects. Do you have a background? You must have a background in visual effects to some degree to execute something at this level.
Yeah, well, I own a post-production facility. It's called DCP Australia. So we do our own in-house VFX, and all the post-production, color grading, editing, everything's done in-house. So we're lucky in that way, that I don't have to outsource and pay a lot of people to do things I can do myself. But I still have other people that I have to pay, and it ends up being still an expensive exercise. So
I just mean more from the technical proficiency. I've done a limited amount of special effects here and there in films and as a filmmaker, but I look at the character animation you have and the placement and the visual overlays. That's the stuff that you're doing. It rivals all of the Hollywood movies. So in the short film space, that terrifies me as a filmmaker. So when does that start in the writing process where you're already planning for the effects you're going to do, having that background, or is it you just write the script you want and then you will figure out with you and your team how to execute?
Well, with Shift, it was actually a bit of a compromise. Those alien creatures was definitely not what I wanted. I wanted something much more elaborate, but time-wise and money and skills and area, it was just a little bit too difficult to accomplish in a short space of time. So we opted for the easier route, which was animating these aliens. But and they were just stock robots of Turbo Squid.
Okay, Turbo Squid is like a stock website for animation?
No, for 3D models.
I think we live in such an interesting time where I was discussing that if you're familiar with the virtual production of like The Mandalorian and bringing back sort of rear projection, but in this new form with Unreal Engine, I said we can't be far off before everybody has one, whatever, 10 years, and everybody will have one in their garage, and then you'll just be able to download different planets and kits. And it is some of that
You
3D
can almost do
modeling.
that.
Is it a little bit like kit bashing of the old model days, where you would buy different different physical models and then you'd build your own custom model? Like, are you able to customize everything that's out there?
To a degree,
Mm-hmm.
like all the opening shot of Sydney Harbour with drained of water with the destroyed buildings, that was sort of piece built like that. It was I had one of my employees in here doing all the modelling of the base, and at the same time I was working on all the destroyed buildings and the harbour bridge on the top, and then I had another guy come in and do the texturing and lighting of the base, or the sand base. So it's kind of a lot of people come together to do that. It's certainly not kit bash, that one, but you know, like Alien, we did sessions of motion capture, some mocap, where
Mm-hmm.
I had a mate of mine who's just a stunt guy who dressed up in his little black suit with balls, and we did all the motion capture that I thought the alien movements would need. And then I had someone else do all the attaching it all, rigging, and the final animations, and then we did
I
all the
mean,
compositing.
it's ambitious. Most people, when they're like, I'm going to make a short film, I'm going to get 2 or 3 actors. We're going to limit it to one location. It's going to be inside, so we have control over everything. And then shift is,
Mm,
no, we're going to have mocap and all of this rigging animation and custom effects. And
yeah.
I really applaud you for the ambition, because, like I say, it's nothing short of the movies that I watch on television and streaming platforms daily. In terms of let's talk about the story of it. I mean, what you get in Shift is like just a taste of this huge world. I imagine when you were writing this, or conceiving the idea, at least, you have a much bigger. This could be a series. This could be, several movies. Like, is there a larger story to tell if you had the opportunity?
The opportunity is already here. Yeah. So when I originally started work on it, it was that competition, and then we realized it would be something, or had potentially could be something much bigger. So I retweaked the script to be more of a proof of concept style shoot, not so much its own independent short film. Um, and we shot back in, I think, like 2016, and I finished like a trailer which we took to Cannes, and pitched it around as a potential TV series. And we got really, really close. And for all intents and purposes, that the trailer alone had done the job. So I never actually finished a whole short film. It wasn't until a few years later that I was living and working in Thailand, and I had a lot of spare time. I was doing more gym work and swimming than work. So I thought, you know what, I should actually finish this. I kind of stumbled across an old cut, and I'm like, damn, that's just pretty good. I should actually turn this into its own standalone short film. So that's when I did that, and that's why it kind of had a release date much later than when we shot.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Um,
that's the backstory that audiences don't see, is often the deal making of trying to get anything launched to television or a feature film. It's often years beyond what any of us creators would want,
it
and
takes a
years
long time.
beyond what anybody would expect it to be. And then for everything you do see on television or in a cinema, the amount of things that never make it is staggering. I think people would be shocked how many amazing projects are out there. And I think what's interesting with the technology today and your ability to kind of take control is, like, you're able to push that needle forward, where if this was just a script that you're out shopping versus having this proof of concept shorts, that's night and day of what people can see, of what you can do. It's like holding the blueprints up versus having built your first model house and saying, no,
Yeah,
I am a craftsman. I know how to build this.
it helps.
Yeah, it
It,
definitely
it
helps.
it definitely does help, but at the same time, you need somebody to believe in you as well.
Hmm.
Um, and what I found over the years was that even though I've got wall features distributed by Lionsgate under my belt, um, I've got other work. It was still very, very difficult to get Shift to the next stage. Um, but I've teamed up with a really, really good guy out of LA, really, really good producer. His name's Stephen. And he took a stab and he's believed in the work. So we've now written a feature-length script. We did that back in September, and we're actually casting now for a full feature.
That's amazing. Well,
So
congratulations.
thank you. So it's a little early to be
That's
celebrating, but
it's still no
it's very
small
close.
milestone. I think in terms of casting, how did you go about casting this short film? Were these actors that you knew, or are they fresh to your projects?
With the short film itself
Yeah.
was cast through friends. Yeah, like Bianca Brady, she's a good friend of mine. She's done a lot of good work. Just did another film called Wormwood, which great zombie film. You should go check that out.
I'm very aware of Wormwood. Very excellent film. Yeah.
So well, they just shot a second one. So
Oh wow.
Yeah, look out for that one.
Now, what was the most challenging part? Like even visual, not even necessarily for the visual effects. What was the most challenging part of creating the short?
um, Nothing's particularly challenging. The shoot itself, like every stage has its challenges. I don't think any one particular aspect stood out more than the other. Getting the locations to shoot in, it's all relying on friends. The old saying, you can't make a film by yourself, and you really do rely on all the talents of all your friends and a lot of favors. So I think I'll be paying back favors now for the next century. But
Yeah,
it's worth it.
At a minimum, I owe roughly 25,000 hours in babysitting for friends, and then I probably owe tens of thousands in editing for friends. It's sort of never ending, but that's sort of the fun thing where the real collaboration is like, if you get my back on this like passion project, I'll be there to hold the boom or do whatever you need me to do on the thing when you're ready to do yours. But often those projects are the most fun because when people are really there for passion versus just a paycheck, there's a different energy on set. There's a different tone of how people are approaching the creative, and I'm happy to be part of it in a small role because I'm inspired by those teams, and it always energizes me to want to go out and write and get my next thing going.
Yeah, and short films is always a good way to do it too because
Mm-hmm.
it is limited. It might be challenging and difficult on the day, but it's over in one weekend and it's over. Or in our case, it was 2 weekends. But you have time to breathe during the week. You can go back to your life. That when we shot Forbidden Ground, we were in the field in the mud, for 20 days straight, and that was challenging. That was something I never ever want to do again. But these little short proof of concepts, they're kind of fun. You really get to think about the creative aspects. You have time to change things if it's not working out. It should be all about exploring and finding your little niche where you sort of fit in the industry.
What was your approach to working with a composer on this and in developing music that suits a sci-fi story?
Look, one of my very good mates, Jason Fernandez, is the composer, but he's been my composer for many years. So, I kind of trust a lot in Jason. He's very, very talented. And I don't really present him with ideas or music to go with it. I give him the cut and I say, Jason, see what you can do with this. And then we'll listen through, and if there's changes, we make changes. But 90% of the time he's bang on. I get what he does and I'm just blown away. I'm going, this is freaking awesome. Um, the only song that I actually asked him to sort of emulate was the tail, or the end credit song, because we had, I forget what tune it was in there. We had a song in there that I'd cut these credits to with that glitchy effect,
Mm-hmm.
and I really love that sound. So I just said, sort of do something like that. And
It's the tempitis, I think they call it for us directors, where we fall in love with temp music and can't always let it go.
yeah, exactly.
It's hard, especially when you've edited and paced, and it just sort of perfectly sells the emotion. I think that's one of the hardest challenge I have whenever I take something to my composers. I've learned to now remove all the temp music and just send it to him blank and
Yeah.
say, okay, I have to let that go. And now we're at a starting point of like trusting his instincts and his abilities as well as what I've had in my head
Exactly.
for weeks. It's just unfair to him to say, to have, I want it to sound like this John Williams track. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that
Unless
we
you
have the
can
budget
afford
for
Hans
these.
Zimmer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think,
Maybe not this one.
in terms of like building the production design, you have some really, really interesting like costumes and production design. And there's a great blend of special effects, even in the design of the film. Is it difficult to stand out and find a signature look, particularly in a short film where maybe you don't have the same budget as the studio? There's so much iconic imagery from sci-fi movies that we've seen throughout the decades. Is that a challenge in taking on a film like this to build your own style and create your own sort of tone and world?
Well, again, my original vision was even more unique and distinctive, which involved shaving hair and having things stuck in their heads, and but nobody wanted to shave their heads because they weren't being paid much. So I had to bail out on that idea and make compromises, which for the feature I'm not going to do. So for the feature, you're going to get what it should have been. Um,
You should have
but
just method that. You should have just had some lice just, secretly around the set in the audition process, and then nobody would have a choice. And, perfect
yeah.
timing. Yeah.
See, where was your diabolical mind when I needed it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe that's why I don't get to make films that often, is because I put it into play too often.
But
But
a
that's
lot of
honestly,
that design.
sorry, go ahead. Go
Sorry,
ahead. Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, a lot of the design is also happy accidents. Because the wardrobe, I also at that point I owned an armory, so I had all the weapons
Oh, wow.
and things, and I'd been doing that for many years. I've now sold it. I was still involved with it, but I've passed it because I just don't have time to do it. But at that point, I still had the armory. We still had all the sort of SWAT costumes and all that sort of clothing and all that gear. But then our makeup girl, Lucy Wolfman, she decided to paint one of the eyes black. And I just looked at her and go, that's kind of cool. Just little things just that added, and then all the braiding of the hair and doing some really cool stuff. She, again, you got to rely on the pros around you and pick good people as a director or producer. If you pick the best people for their jobs, then your job is so much easier. You don't have to do as much.
Well said. It's excellent advice to anybody out there making films. That's all the time we need for today. I've learned to keep these things short and sweet, never overextend myself in people's viewership. So thank you so much for joining us today.
No, it's
Everybody
my
at
pleasure.
home, reveal.net, revealmovies.com, check out Shift. It's an excellent sci-fi short film. I
And
see
look
a
out for the
lot,
feature
and look out for the feature, which
coming soon.
as Reveal grows, hopefully it becomes a place that the feature will eventually be as well for people to see. But thank you for taking the time today. This is even just, as a filmmaker, I'm always fascinated to learn about processes that I don't often get to partake in, such as massive special effects shoots. So I thanks for educating me and for chatting with our audience about the making of your film.
No, lovely talking. Cheers. Thanks.